Welcome to episode 6 of LinguaFox, your shortcut to fluent speech. I'm your host Abbas Salahshour, and today we are diving into one of the most challenging aspects of language learning: reading. Whether you are in Tehran, Toronto, or Texas, reading is a skill that often gets overlooked. Yet it's one of the most important aspects of becoming fluent in any language. We are going to explore why reading can be difficult, why you need to embrace it to improve, and practical ways to make reading a part of your daily life, no matter where you are from. Let's make reading an ally, not an obstacle. Reading can feel like a monumental task. This is especially true for Iranian learners who often face difficulties accessing diverse and authentic English reading materials. In fact, the textbooks in language institutes might be outdated, focusing too much on grammar rules and too little on real-world language use. Globally, many learners struggle with understanding the context of what they read, and without context, language becomes confusing. In Iran, learners might also face limitations in accessing native content, whether it's books, movies, or articles written by native speakers. This makes it harder to understand idiomatic expressions and cultural nuances. To solve that problem, forget the traditional methods. Don't waste time on those textbooks that have you memorizing useless rules or reading irrelevant passages. Instead, go for authentic materials and content in English on topics you actually care about, like technology, music, or movies. Reading should connect to your life and interests, not a dry textbook. Start with something you're passionate about, and don't be afraid to ditch those useless, outdated textbooks that don't give you real language exposure. Many learners, especially Iranian students, may read English texts without a clear purpose, just reading for the sake of reading. This can often lead to frustration when they don't understand much or when they forget what they read quickly. It's especially challenging if the material isn't related to their interests or needs. Globally, this is a common problem. When learners read without focusing on comprehension or application, the information doesn't stick. To solve that problem, to really benefit from reading, make it purposeful. As an Iranian learner, pick textbooks that relate to your life. If you're into technology, read about the latest tech innovations in English. If you love music, explore English articles or interviews with your favorite artists. This makes reading more engaging and memorable, and will give you enough reason to learn and keep whatever you have learned in your mind for as long as possible. For Iranian learners, context is often overlooked in traditional English learning environments. Textbooks tend to focus heavily on grammar rules rather than how language is used in real-life situations. On a global scale, however, many learners struggle with reading English texts without understanding cultural context or the background of the author's style of writing and intention. In Iran, especially, exposure to native English culture is limited, and this absence of context can make reading feel dry and disconnected. To fix that, when reading in English, try to immerse yourself in the context. For example, if you are reading an article about politics, try to understand the political culture behind the article. In Iran, this could mean reading about global issues in English that interest you, and using news sources like the BBC, CNN, The Guardian, or the New York Times, which provide context-rich materials. This can really help you understand not just the words, but also their nuances and how they are shaped by the culture. For both Iranian learners and language learners worldwide, there's a fear of tackling difficult texts. Whether it's a dense academic article, a classic novel, or even a complicated news piece, many learners feel overwhelmed by challenging texts. For Iranian learners, especially those studying English in institutes, They may feel limited to textbooks and exercises that don't encourage reading beyond the basics. The solution is that you need to start by breaking down complex texts. Don't aim for perfection on your first try. Begin with shorter sections. Read them slowly and highlight the words or phrases that are new to you. Then, look up their meaning in an English to English dictionary and try using them in a sentence. Gradually, as your vocabulary expands, your ability to understand more complex texts will also improve. And now you might be struggling with this question: when do I need to look up a word in a dictionary? In fact, when not understanding a certain word prevents you from comprehending what's happening within a text or within a paragraph, it is at that moment that you're going to have to look it up in an English to English dictionary. Please do not use a bilingual dictionary. Use an English to English dictionary. At first, it's going to be challenging, but trust me, in the long run, you will thank me for that. For Iranian learners, like all learners around the world, the real issue is often lack of consistency. Without a structured way to practice reading every day, learners drift away from the habit, especially when faced with other responsibilities like work or school. On a global scale, learners may also face distractions from the internet or social media, leading them to abandon their reading routine. To fight distractions, make reading a part of your daily routine. Set aside just 15 minutes a day to read something in English. For Iranian learners, consider starting with social media posts in English, like tweets, short stories, news summaries. Gradually, increase the length and complexity of what you read. You can even join online reading groups to discuss the books or articles in English, which will help with both motivation and comprehension. And finally, a quick recap of what we talked about today. Embrace reading as part of your language learning journey. Pick purposeful, interest-based materials that connect to your world. Don't fear difficult texts. Start small and build up. Build a habit. 15 minutes a day can make a huge difference. And remember, context is key. Understand not just words, but culture too. And as for your challenge, pick one thing to read in English today, be it a short article, a tweet, a piece of a book, an article from the news, or a paragraph of The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. If this episode resonated with you, please share it with someone who's struggling with reading in English, and let's build a smarter way to learn languages. Subscribe to LinguaFox for weekly insights, real strategies, and deep dives that actually move the needle. Until next time, keep reading, keep learning, and keep building the language life you want.